There are many heroes in occupied Gaza, the doctors and nurses having to treat some of the worst injuries one can witness under horrific conditions, parents consoling their children under the constant barrage of rocket fire, and journalists, yes, journalists risking their lives to make sure every one of those voices is heard by the rest of the world. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, more than 114 journalists and media workers have been killed since the start of Israel's genocide in occupied Gaza. In fact, more journalists have been killed in the first 10 weeks of the Israel-Gaza war than have ever been killed in a single country over an entire year. The organisation further adds that these killings have reflected a pattern of targeting journalists and their families by the Israeli military. My next guest is one of those heroes, many would argue, working to get the story of Gaza out into the wider world. Her work has been crucial as Israel commits more and more crimes in that occupied strip. She has witnessed some of the worst atrocities of this century, and I would argue experienced loss very few people can know. Hind Khoudary is a Palestinian journalist based in occupied Gaza, and she joins me now. Hind, thank you so much in the middle of all this chaos for joining us on Mehdi Unfiltered. Let me start by asking you right now, where are you? What is the situation like where you're at?
I'm currently in Deir al-Balah, and I have been displaced from the Gaza city to Deir al-Balah in November 2023. And the situation is crazy every single day. Continuous explosions, continuous artillery shelling, and not only that, the amount of displacement. Deir al-Balah is now a makeshift camp for millions of Palestinians, and this is how we're living right now. And so not only like the airstrikes or the displacement, it's also the humanitarian and the health situation, and also the sewage, the garbage, diseases. So the impact of war, we're talking about a year now. So it's beyond than anyone could ever imagine.
Did you ever imagine we would still be here in this situation a year in? Because previous Gaza conflicts were horrible, but they were over in weeks or months. Did you ever imagine we'd be here October 2024?
I remember like the first couple of days of the war where I was posting like numbers, like day number 1, day number 2, and then like 20, 60, 70. And then I started counting months. And then now I'm counting a year. I never in my life thought that this would take a year. And I would never ever thought that I would not only mark a year of this war, but also mark a year without my family, because I refused to leave because I thought it was only a couple of months, but now I'm away from them and I have no idea when is the next time I will ever see them again.
That's awful. And Hind, unfortunately, it being a year and people being how they are, a lot of people have moved on from Gaza. I'm here in the West, where I watched a lot of people looking at Instagram every day, watching clips from people like yourself and Bisan and Motaz, 24 hours a day. And then I guess people became numb to it, right? As time goes by, it became kind of background noise, sadly, for a lot of people in the West. What has it been like for people in Gaza? How do you get used to being in the middle of this? Can you get used to it? How have people adjusted their lives to adapt to living under constant attack for 12 months?
Well, you're never used to it. Let's be like very clear that you're never used to it. Every single day is a new day of horror. It's a new day of another like massacre, atrocities. Like every single second that passes by, it's a different way of violence committed by Israel, by the about the Palestinians. But the fact is, like, people believe that Palestinians are so resilient, Palestinians are living this, no one's going to break them. But no, we're all exhausted, we're all tired. And 1 year of this is unimaginable, you know? Like, the horror itself of what is being done to us is compounded by the response of the Western countries that like have the power to stop this or denounce Israel for their crimes against humanity. I believe like in the West is a force for good, and think many people around the world no longer see it the way it is anymore.
And of course, on that note, you are putting your life on the line every minute of every day to get the story of Gaza out into the wider world. I mean, as we pass the 365-day mark, do you feel the world is listening to people like yourself?
To be honest, yes. The world, like part of the world, is listening
Yes.
because we received like huge support. Like in the first couple of months, I got like hundreds of thousands of followers and people who know me from around the globe. How did all of these people know me? But at the end of the day, yes, people were listening, people were following, and we were doing like a huge effort. Like we Palestinian journalists on the ground were doing work that news organizations and media outlets worldwide would never cope with. Very bare minimum of requirements, equipment, tools, internet blackouts, no electricity, not even having the time to sleep, and not even having a place to sleep. Like, how would you report or stand on your feet like hours and telling the world the story when you're not even being sleeping, not being eating, and also separated from your family? It's not only like we're reporting this, but we're also living every single detail. Like when we report about famine, we're not eating food. When we report about diseases, we're being sick. When we report about people not being able to leave, we're also not being able to leave. And when we report about being killed, we're being killed. Like, I remember when the Israeli forces invaded Al-Shifa hospital, my uncle was killed and he was on the ground for 3 days without being buried. No one knew where he was. No one knew how he was killed. And after they withdrew, we were able to bury him. Until this point, I'm talking about months now. I don't know where he is right now. I don't know where he's buried. And I know nothing about him. And I can't go there. And the same about my house. Like my house, the house my father built, and all my memories were there. And I left the house knowing, thinking that I'll be back like in 5 days or a week.
Yeah.
And suddenly I see this video on Instagram and see my house flattened to the floor. And till this day, I don't know when it was bombed, what happened, and I can't even reach it. And it's only 15 minutes from Deir al-Balah, where I am right now. So it has been very tough. It has been very exhausting and draining, but at the same time, this is the only thing we have. We were privileged to report about Palestinians and the Palestinian stories, and I have the honor to report about my people, and that's what's keeping me going, because every time we report on something and we make more advocacy and something changes, this means the world to me, and this means that we can change and make power. But another thing is it's I don't think like words could ever describe what I'm feeling right now. And every single day, every new story or different story, it's just as if it's the first day of the war.
Hind, it's awful what you're going through. I'm so sorry to hear about your uncle. You mentioned that a lot of people started following you after October 7th from around the world. How do you feel about the people who haven't followed you? And when I say the people who haven't followed you, I mean Western media. A lot of Western media outlets have ignored the work done by Palestinian journalists on the ground. I'm amazed at how few journalists in the West have spoken up in defense of Palestinian journalists who have been killed over the last 12 months. This is the greatest killing of journalists in one place in my lifetime. And yet you haven't all become cause célèbres for people in the UK or the US or France. What is your message to journalists abroad who have kind of abandoned you all?
Well, not only they abandoned us, but the whole Western media was complicit and still complicit about the genocide. And that also remember that this is still ongoing. It didn't end, it didn't stop, it's still ongoing. And it's the truth that was like driving me to do this. And as I mentioned, like we're the only people, we were the only source for all of these news organizations to report on what's happening. All we cared about is to portray the truth, tell the facts, tell the stories. Me, as Hind, I have been receiving a lot of hate from a lot of people on Twitter, for example. If I just tweet hi, I'll get like people cursing me, people threatening me, people blackmailing me, people telling me that they're gonna find me and they're gonna kill me, people telling me like that we're gonna find you and bomb you and kill your family. And a very famous journalist said that there were no journalists on the ground just because we're journalists, Palestinian journalists.
Yeah.
No foreign journalists were reporting on Gaza. But the fact that there was no international journalists on Gaza was also the only way they would receive or know what's happening is us. Either they're journalists, influencers, content creators, or even normal citizens. And without us, no one would have seen what we have been reporting about. Now, another thing, for all of these journalists that believe that we're not credible, that believe that we're not talented, no. Palestinian journalists are amazing. We have great people on the ground. We have people that talk different languages. We have people that take beautiful photos. And they have been not only documenting this, but they have been risking.
So on that note, Hind, what has it been like for you as a reporter to report not just on the deaths of strangers, but the deaths of your own colleagues, fellow journalists, and knowing, God forbid, that could be you?
The hardest part of all of this was reporting the death or the killing or the injury of our colleagues. Every single time we receive this news that someone has been killed or injured, the worst moment is when you read the name of a person you know or someone else you know. There's a constant fear that this person that you are with today may be killed or injured tomorrow. And there has been 2 incidents where I reported the killing of my colleagues, Ismail al-Ghul and Hamza al, and I was like reporting, it was my shift, and I was okay before the camera started rolling, and as soon as the anchor started asking me like what happened, I started like crying, because how could I be professional and report without crying when it's one of my friends, when it's reporting on someone you just talked to or you were texting. And it was so hard, and I have this constant fear of losing more people. Like the thing I don't want to experience anymore is more loss and more grief, because my heart can't handle all of this. Like, it has been a year. I lost like maybe like dozens of people I know. I lost a lot of close friends, relatives, cousins, uncles, and I can't do this anymore. It's so hard, and no one could imagine how hard it is to be and to report this. It's like you can't even think of the words when you come and report such incidents.
I want to play to you an old clip, Hind, that we found of you being interviewed by Vice Arabia back in 2017, when you were answering a question on what the most dangerous thing you had ever done was reporting in Gaza. I think we can play that clip.
أخطر إشي أوكي يمكن على الحدود، طلعت على الحدود لأول مرة بالمواجهات وأكلت قنبلتين غاز. ما كنتش خايفة بالمرة.
When you see that clip now,
definitely changed.
when you see that clip now, what goes through your mind? What would you want to tell that version of Hind Khoudary?
That's 2017 when the Great March of Return marches started, and at that time, yes, there were Israeli snipers, there were Israeli soldiers in front of us, and they were like targeting us with tear gas canisters. Until this day, I'm very traumatized every time I see a drone, even if it was like a filming drone, because I remember like the tear gas canisters. But now, no, it's totally changed. Like, since the beginning of the war, every incident or every time we were reporting, there was a very high risk, and I wish my mom doesn't hear that. There were a lot of incidents where the car beside us gets targeted or the building in front of us gets targeted. At one time, I went to my house when it was a danger zone just to collect a couple of shirts because I had zero stuff. I think my biggest fear right now is not dying or losing my life, but my biggest fear right now is losing someone I love, or someone very close to me. It's actually very like nice to see myself smiling in that clip. I think I changed a lot from 2017 till now.
Hind, we will have to leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking with us. It has been a devastating year, and we appreciate your work in bringing what is happening in Gaza to the world, and we hope you stay safe. We really do.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to Zeteo.com. Your support matters.